What is up, everybody? I hope you all are having a wonderful day. So recently, I got caught up with the anime Tokyo Revengers, and all I can say is, what the actual fuck, man? I'm not gonna spoil the show for you guys, but all I will say is, how does the season end like that? Whether I mean that in a good or a bad way is up to you to decide. For those of you who haven't seen the best anime from the previous season, what are you doing here? Go binge it, like, right now. For those of you who haven't been convinced yet, here's a quick synopsis. Tokyo Revengers is about a 26-year-old man named Takemichi Hanagaki who was pushed in front of a train, died, went back in time, told his girlfriend's brother about some bad stuff that happened in the future, including how he died, and then shook his hand and awoke back in the future where the brother saved him from death and became the trigger for him to go back in time to stop the stuff from happening in the first place. Okay, that was the quick rundown version for those who wanted to know more about the show before getting into it. It's kind of like the anime Erased, but instead of a murder mystery, it involves middle school biker gangs and a time travel mechanic that still doesn't make sense, but isn't completely random. Now, to elaborate more on the story, Takemichi saw a news report about a gang war breaking out which resulted in the death of his old middle school girlfriend and her brother. Then on his way to his dead-end job, someone pushed him onto the train tracks. He then woke up back in middle school, where him and his friends were forced to fight in these underground arenas hosted by a member of the Tokyo Majin gang, who by the way were responsible for the death of his middle school girlfriend, Tachibana Hinata. Later that evening, he felt a strong urge to see her again and rushed to her house. When he got there, he had a strong sense of joy when he saw her alive and healthy, and simultaneously felt saddened by her death in the present. After briefly talking to her, he ended up running into her younger brother Tachibana Naoto and informed him that he is from the future. He then told him of how all three of them died and that he should take care of his sister. He then shook Naoto's hand and woke up surrounded by medical personnel and police officers. After he saw himself in the mirror, he realized that he was back in the future, and he was somehow still alive. Then adult Naoto walks in and tells him that his actions in the past caused Naoto to become a police officer and save Takemichi's life, but his sister still died anyways. They then came to the realization that shaking Naoto's hand can send Takemichi back in time as well as return him to the present. While he is in the past, the present body remains inanimate, and time continues on. He can travel back and forth exactly 12 years, so if he spends a day in the past, he returns to that day 12 years in the future, so his body would have been immobile for a whole day. We learn all of this in the first 2 episodes, so no real spoilers here. But the story gets a lot better, especially with how Takemichi grows as a character. In the present timeline, he's a failure who doesn't have a bright future. He works at a movie rental store for a manager who's younger than him. He's a total coward who's too afraid to even try to better himself. This does change as the series goes on. He matures as he gains something he wants to protect, mainly being his old girlfriend Tachibana Hinata. Now this alone doesn't make Takemichi into a good protagonist. We've seen characters like him all the time. The two most noteworthy being Shinji Ikari from Neon Genesis Evangelian and Natsuki Subaru from ReZero. Shinji had all of his trauma and insecurities inflicted onto him by his own father who abandoned him. Then he's forced to fight to the death against these world-ending monsters called angels while piloting these giant mechs called Evangelians. By the way, the kid is only 13. And the fate of the world was thrusted into his hands by that very same man who broke him mentally when he was only a small child. Not only does he not have any form of self-confidence to the point that he sees himself as worthless, but he's also suddenly tasked with the fate of the world. He's lost and confused, which makes sense, but what I believe the show did wrong is that Shinji continuously refuses to take action. Like, I understand he doesn't want to just do whatever his douchebag father wants him to, but the situation is dire, and when push comes to shove, Shinji chose to not step up to the plate. Stuff like that doesn't make sense to me. Spoilers incoming, but when Shinji does act, he tends to win with the support of Rei and Asuka, who can also pilot Evangelians. They, as a trio, go on a massive win streak with Shinji leading the group. As a result of their constant victories, Shinji gets really cocky and charges in headfirst against an unknown angel with no support, which nearly gets him killed. After that incident, he completely breaks and loses his sense of self. It takes him some time to mentally recover from that experience, and the mental scars remain with him throughout the series. Then in another fight, an angel possessed this new experimental Evangelion unit, and Shinji didn't want to fight it because he didn't want to kill the pilot. Then his father took control of the unit and remotely forced it to attack. The new unit was destroyed and the angel was killed, but Shinji was forced to act against his will by the man he hated the most in the world. What makes it worse is that the pilot he nearly killed was his closest friend. So now, not only has Shinji's mental and emotional trauma gotten worse, but now it has become difficult for him to enter the Evangelian unit because he doesn't trust that his father won't take control of it again. Despite all of this, he still continues to fight because he needs to protect humanity. Then he hears that the most powerful angel who has the capability to wipe out the entire planet is coming, and instead of joining Rei and Asuka to try and stop it, he chickens out and joins the civilians in the bomb shelter. Hey everyone, a quick editor's note here. I got some of the episodes mixed up. So these two scenes happen right after each other. So the reason he refused to pilot the Evangelian unit was because he was afraid his father would take control of it again. But still, the fact that he refused to pilot it despite the world being in danger was something I could not accept. This part pisses me off because it could have been done in a better way. If he went to fight the angel and all of his trauma was making it difficult for him to properly pilot the Evangelion, and he was more of a hindrance in combat, then I would have been like, you know, it makes sense. This is a do or die situation. There is no way with someone with all of his trauma can fight with ease after all he's been through. But no. Instead of choosing to do, he chose to die. He literally abandoned his comrades to hide in an underground shelter while a planet-destroying angel was on its way. If this series had ended with the angel successfully wiping out the planet, I would have been less pissed than the fact that he realized halfway through the fight that him hiding in the shelter does nobody any good against a planet-destroying angel. I never understood his logic for choosing to run away in that situation. I understand that Shinji fighting is a part of his father's evil scheme, and him running away ruins that plan. But his only other choice was allowing the world to be destroyed. And at that point, he was unaware of what his father was actually trying to do. So it literally does not make any sense to me. Which is why the lack of common sense makes me treat Shinji as a bad protagonist. The fight or flight decision is meant to be made in the direction that gives you the greatest chance for survival. In Shinji's case, the fight gives you a chance for survival while flight ensures death. And he chose flight in those situations more time than I can allow. That's all I have to say about that. Now, moving on to one of my favorite characters, Natsuki Subaru from ReZero. Unlike Shinji, Subaru doesn't have any severe childhood trauma, but he does have self-esteem issues. He had a loving home, but he never had a sense of self due to the popularity of his father, Takemichi. His father was talented and well-beloved growing up, so much so that everyone compared Subaru to him. When he accomplished anything, he never received recognition or praise for it. Well, maybe his own parents praised him while the other people around him expected him to succeed due to his father's achievements. This caused Subaru to doubt his own skills. Subaru began to act in an outlandish fashion in order to get people to recognize him as an individual, but it backfired, and he became an outcast. People thought he was weird and began avoiding him, which mentally broke Subaru, because he acted in a similar fashion to his own father. Now you might be asking, why would Subaru act like his father if he was trying to separate himself from him? Here's the thing, Subaru loved and admired his father. They had a really close relationship, and Subaru didn't have any negative feelings towards him. He just wanted to be recognized as Subaru and not Natsuki Kenichi's son. So he figured he can imitate his dad's personality to stand out more in order to gain recognition, and that strategy failed horribly. As a result of him becoming a social outcast, he stopped attending school and became a shut-in. He then got a chance at a fresh start when he got isekai'd. He continued to use his outlandishness in order to stand out, but this time, people were not ignoring him. Also, no one knew who his dad was, so he wasn't compared to him at all. After entering a new world, he gained a tremendous amount of self-confidence, especially after he met Emilia. Now, what separates Subaru from the other two characters is that not only does he suffer psychological torment, but also physical. Not saying Shinji and Takemichi don't suffer physically, it's just not to the extent that Subaru does, which adds on to his already fragile mindset. The only thing that really held Subaru from being a great character, spoilers incoming, was how he lost himself near the end of the first season. He got a little too full of himself and made a complete ass out of himself during a very important meeting. He then started picking fights for no reason and proceeded to continually embarrass not only himself, but Emilia as well. And during a dire situation, he tried to get people to help him, but he was so far gone at that point he couldn't convince anyone to take his side. His random outbursts and belief that people should just shut up and follow his lead made him seem like a total nutjob who was only in it for himself. The way he acted in this situation does make sense, since at that point he was mentally broken, blinded by rage, and confused as to what he should do next since he was between a rock and a hard place. In other words, he was completely lost. At the end, he decided to give up and run away with Rem. Fortunately, Rem declines his offer, and instead offered him some guidance, which helped clear away the dark clouds both metaphorically and literally. Since Subaru has his return by death, and that's the only thing special about him, he ends up dying. A lot. Now, you would think being able to go back in time by dying could be very useful. However, Subaru would disagree with you. In the light novel, someone told him that he will suffer a fate worse than death, and Subaru retorted by stating that he doesn't want to hear that from someone who hasn't actually experienced death before. Despite knowing he will come back to life, Subaru hates dying. He considers it the second most traumatizing thing to experience, next to losing someone he cares for, which is why he has only taken his life in the most dire situations. Why I like Subaru a lot more than Shinji, other than the fact that I hate Shinji as a character, is that Subaru at the start of the series has nothing special to him, and the more we learn about him, we see that he can't become something special, at least for now. Yet, despite his flaws, he continues to persevere. He may have given up at one point, but with a little help, he found some new light. In Shinji's case, despite getting help, he still continues down the same path. Even when he got hurt after trying to improve himself, he didn't learn anything from it, and instead regressed and refused to mature from that point on. Now, these two have probably the most insecurities and trauma to deal with, so why do I think Takemichi is a better protagonist? Here's the thing, what separates Takemichi from the other characters in this video is that he constantly tries to confront his trauma. While Shinji runs away from his trauma and Subaru tries to work around it, Takemichi directly confronts it. He doesn't always overcome it, but that doesn't cause him to back down because he knows he can't. If he gives up, he loses something precious to himself. He is terrified and gets lost very easily, but that doesn't stop him. Like earlier in the series, he mentioned the name of the leader of the Tokyo Majin gang, Mikey, and one of the members, Kiyomizu Masataka, severely beat him with a bat because of it. Takemichi freaked out and just wanted to run away from this ordeal. Then he thought about how if he ran away, he would be abandoning Tachibana Hinata, his middle school girlfriend. So the next day, he went to the fight arena and challenged the host, Masataka, who had just brutally beat him with a bat the day before. He knew he wasn't going to win, but he needed to do something to get information about the leader Mikey. So as you would expect, he got his ass beat. But he continued to get up, and eventually he caught the attention of the leader and his second-in-command Draken. They were on their way to put a stop to the fighting arena, and after seeing Takemichi refusing to back down, they gained some respect for him and befriended him. Now, this is only the second episode in the first quarter of the prologue, so it's not really a spoiler. There are other situations where he has to directly confront his trauma and fears, but those get into spoiler territory. So for now, all I'm going to say is that Takemichi suffered greatly in middle school, which led him to have no ambition or drive. Thankfully, he got an opportunity to go back in time and not only change his fate, but the fate of others as well. And because his future isn't the only one on the line, he can't accept his shortcomings and give up. So, in order to ensure the best possible future for all of those he cares for, he has to continue to move forward through the torturous terrain he's placed himself in. There is no running away or giving up. He won't allow himself to. And even if he's on the verge of losing all hope, he has those whose trust and respect he has earned supporting him and reminding him what's at stake. That's why he's the superior protagonist out of these three tragic heroes I have mentioned. He never looks back or tries to find a less traumatizing path. He rushes in headfirst through his traumas and insecurities to reach the best possible outcome. And that's going to be it for this one, folks. I would like to thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and remember to keep having fun. See ya!